In 2016, an anonymous source sent a message to a German journalist. It read, "I want to make these crimes public." Attached were 2.6 terabytes of data, over 11 million documents, ripped straight from the servers of a Panamanian law firm. Within weeks, the world would learn the names of prime ministers, presidents, drug traffickers, celebrities, and corporate giants, all connected by one thing. They were hiding money. A lot of it. But here's the twist. Most of it was legal. This leak became known as the Panama Papers, one of the largest data leaks in history. It revealed a hidden network of shell companies, offshore trusts, and secret bank accounts, not just used to hide wealth, but to move it, protect it, and in many cases, launder it. It exposed a system designed by the wealthy, for the wealthy, so complex, so carefully built, that even after the headlines faded, the machine kept running. So how exactly did this system work? Who built it? And how much of the global economy is still flowing through it today? You're not just watching a scandal, you're watching the money game of the 1%. Bastian Obermeier was at his desk in Munich, on his third cup of coffee, when an encrypted message popped up on his screen. He'd spent years digging into corporate scandals, the kind of stories that usually got buried deep inside the newspaper. But this message, it wasn't like anything he'd seen before. The source called themselves John Doe. No phone calls, no meetings, just encrypted messages. And a warning, my life is in danger. These documents didn't expose just one scandal. They revealed how money really works when you're rich enough to bend the rules. The documents came from a law firm called Mossack Fonseca. Never heard of them? Most people hadn't. They weren't the kind of lawyers with billboards or late-night ads. These guys operated in the shadows, and their specialty was making very wealthy people disappear. Not physically, financially. For 40 years, Mossack Fonseca ran what you could call a factory. But instead of making cars or phones, they manufactured invisibility. Fake companies, fake directors, fake addresses, all perfectly legal, and all designed to move billions of dollars across borders without revealing who really owned it. When Obermeier realized what he was looking at, he knew it was way too big for one newsroom. So he called in the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, a global network of reporters. Soon, 370 journalists from over 100 news organizations around the world were on the case, all working in complete secrecy. Some even painted glitter nail polish on their computer screws, a clever trick to detect any tampering. These journalists were sitting on 11.5 million documents. To put that in perspective, if you printed them all out, the stack would be taller than the Eiffel Tower. For over a year, they sifted through emails, bank records, passport scans, and contracts, piecing together the biggest financial puzzle in history. What they uncovered went beyond tax evasion. It exposed a secret financial system, built by and for those rich enough to play by their own rules. Let me explain how this worked, because once you understand the trick, it's actually pretty simple. The offshore system throws around a lot of complex terms, but it all boils down to one idea: hiding ownership. So let's say you're a corrupt politician who just stole $50 million from government contracts. You can't just dump that money into your local bank. People might ask questions. So instead, you call up a firm like Mossack Fonseca. They set you up with what's called a shell company, a business that exists only on paper. No office, no staff, no product. Just a name, an address, and some legal documents. But here's the trick. That paper company can own things, like real estate, yachts, private jets, or even other shell companies. So let's say you take your $50 million and create Shell Company A in the British Virgin Islands. That company then invests in a luxury penthouse in London. But technically, the buyer is Shell Company B in Cyprus. Shell Company B is owned by a trust in Panama, managed by Company C, which is legally owned by yet another entity, Company D, back in the Virgin Islands. On paper, it's all clean. But in reality, you've buried the money under so many layers no one can tell where it came from or who really owns it. But why the British Virgin Islands? Because the BVI became the Las Vegas of corporate registration. What happens there, stays there. Over half of Mossack Fonseca's shell companies were registered in the BVI, thanks to its beautiful secrecy laws. It's the kind of place where you don't need to reveal who really owns a company, just who's pretending to. They use something called nominee directors, professional stand-ins. These are people who sign papers, sit on boards, and lend their names to company filings, without knowing anything about what the company actually does. One nominee director could be listed as managing hundreds of companies, with billions flowing through them, and never ask a single question, because that's the point. Their job isn't to know. Their job is to not know. So, the journalists started spotting patterns. 12 sitting world leaders were using this system, over 128 politicians and public officials, and it wasn't just obscure bureaucrats. It was some of the biggest names on the planet, Vladimir Putin's inner circle, Argentina's football icon Lionel Messi, martial arts superstar Jackie Chan, all linked to offshore companies. And behind the scenes, not just shady lawyers, but some of the world's most powerful banks were helping set it all up. HSBC, Credit Suisse, UBS, institutions that were supposed to protect the financial system, were helping their clients hide billions. But one case shows just how insane this system had become. Rami Makhlouf, cousin of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, had been sanctioned by the US for financing war crimes, and yet Mossack Fonseca set up 6 different shell companies for him. Now, if this were just about the ultra-rich avoiding taxes, that would already be bad enough. But the Panama Papers revealed something much darker. This system was draining the lifeblood from entire countries. Take Sierra Leone, one of the poorest nations on Earth. A shell company named Octea owed the mining town of Koidu over $700,000 in property taxes. That might seem like pocket change to a billionaire, but in Sierra Leone, that's schools, hospitals, clean water. And who owned Octea? Benny Steinmetz, a diamond tycoon worth over $6 billion. $6 billion. And he was stiffing a struggling African town for $700,000. This wasn't a one-off. This pattern repeated everywhere. Wealthy elites and multinational corporations were using offshore loopholes to suck money out of countries, while dodging the taxes that should have paid for public services. It was economic vampirism, and it didn't just affect poor nations. Then came April 3rd, 2016. That's when everything hit the fan. The stories dropped simultaneously across the globe, and within hours, governments were falling apart. Iceland's prime minister resigned after getting caught with his hand in the offshore cookie jar. Pakistan's prime minister was exposed for secretly owning luxury London real estate, while his citizens struggled with poverty. The scale was mind-blowing. One law firm, just one, had created over 214,000 shell companies. That's more than the population of some entire cities. And they weren't alone. Over 500 banks helped their rich clients build these secret financial fortresses. An estimated $500 billion had flowed through the system, more than the GDP of most countries. But it gets worse. Experts estimated that $21 to $32 trillion is hidden in offshore tax havens globally. That's roughly the same as the entire economies of the US and China combined. Gone, hidden, removed from the tax systems of the world. You'd think something would have changed after that, but it didn't. Mossack Fonseca shut down in 2018, saying their reputation was ruined. But dozens of firms are still doing the exact same thing. The British Virgin Islands? Still handing out shell companies like candy. Switzerland? Still selling banking secrecy. Delaware? Yes, Delaware is still one of the easiest places on earth to set up an anonymous company. Because here's the kicker, none of this is technically illegal. Shell companies, nominee directors, offshore trusts, they're all tools built into the system. The law doesn't get broken. The law gets bent, on purpose. The Panama Papers didn't expose a crime. They exposed a system, and the system is still working, exactly as designed. Because in the world we live in, there are 2 sets of rules. One for the ultra-rich, who hire lawyers to write the laws, and one for everyone else, who's told to follow them. Money never sleeps on Wall Street, and neither does on our channel. Watch all the mind-blowing Wall Street stories and explore intriguing money movies, all here in one place. Like this video and subscribe to The Money Game to level up your financial game today.